So, welcome to another edition of the Beyond the Blade podcast. I'm here with Aldo Jaquez. I'm super excited to have him. Aldo is actually a very dear friend of mine, but he's also a mindfulness and breathwork coach. He has a full-time job, but he also does this as well. This is his true passion, and really, we've had some really great conversations about how he's been able to help a lot of people through the breathwork, through the meditation, and I just wanted to bring him on as part of a conversation that I've been wanting to have with him for a while, especially integrating his ideas, his philosophies that he's learned over time at Hydrology, which is our wellness facility here in the Gables in Miami, and just wanting him to, kind of dive deeper into the world of breath work, kind of his personal journey, right? Like how you got into this, what it's done for you in your life, and and I know you've worked with other friends of ours that we have in common, and how that's helped them, overcome certain obstacles and grow. So welcome to the podcast.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Alex. It's honestly really cool to be here. I know it's true. The first time we ever met, I remember it was like very instantaneously. We started talking about breath work and this and that. I remember there was like something lit up and you were like really interested and curious about it. Definitely. And then I think this is a long time coming. So here we are.
Yes, definitely a long time coming. And thanks for coming on.
Thank you. Yeah, it's interesting because I think about this a lot, right? Like how I came to this whole world of breath work and meditation, really anything that turns out to be self-empowering, I view as a very important thing, especially this day and age.
Yeah.
Right? I think we live in, I don't know if you've heard about this idea that we live in the attention economy, right? Like right now, a lot of people are talking about where like the economy of before was more production oriented and this and that. And right now, we're living in the attention economy. So it's really interesting to think about, right? What does that mean? That means that the powers that be out there are vying for your attention, right? There's true. Right? There's so much out there, not just our phones, but everywhere, where it's trying to capture your attention. Yeah. So if you don't have tools or, practices of being aware of what's happening with your attention, you're going to get caught up by what's going on out there. And that's why I've been so enamored since the second I started doing this, because I instantaneously, well, I wouldn't say instantaneously, but eventually I started realizing how much power there is there. Yeah.
No, definitely. I mean, everything that you're saying is on point, is definitely accurate. I mean, every time you're not either, working or you're not, with somebody that you care about or that you're in a conversation with, your attention is being constantly pulled away from from the present, right? Yeah. And you're constantly looking at your phone. I mean, if you have an Apple Watch, you're getting bing, 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 bing every 5 minutes. And, it's hard. And when you have kids, like you and I have young kids, it's really important that you get rid of some of that technology because you can't be in two places at one time.
For sure. Right? And it's what's interesting is, people ask me a lot, like, what is meditation, right? Ultimately. And I view it as like, distilled to its purest form, it's attention training. Meditation in the simplest way is defined by being single-pointed focus. Okay. That is the most simple definition of meditation, single-pointed focus. So can you learn to bring your attention to where you want it to be? And that could be anything, right? Like it doesn't have to be one thing. It can be your work. Yeah. It can be a conversation you're having with a friend.
Sure.
It can be the workout you're doing. So meditation becomes not just the moments that you're sitting on a mat, cross-legged, meditating in perfect peace. Right. It can become any aspect of your life. So what I love is that anything can become a meditation. Let's put it that way.
There you go.
Right?
Yeah.
So you can learn to meditate while you're cooking. You can learn to meditate while you're gardening. You can learn to meditate while you're anywhere. So that, I say this because one of the things I hear a lot when I mention meditation to people is, oh, that's not for me, or I tried it and it didn't work for me, this and that, right? Like you hear that a lot. And fair, right? Like sure. I'm not saying it's easy, no. But if you can learn how to direct your attention when you're sitting literally doing nothing with no stimulation, that's the purest form of being able to be with your attention and with your thoughts.
Yeah.
So
No, absolutely. No, that I have gotten a lot of that feedback from other people. Like, no, it's hard for me to meditate because I can't like sit still or I can't do this. But there's something also called flow, and I'm sure you've heard of flow, right?
Yeah.
And I feel that a lot as a surgeon in my world. Like when I'm in the middle of an operation, it's almost like a meditative state, right? I feel that also when cycling, for example, you get into, or sometimes with running, you get into like almost like a meditative state because you're so present in what you're doing. The rest of the world just kind of becomes like a gray zone, right?
Yeah.
And it's a really cool experience, and it doesn't, like you said, it doesn't have to be cross-legged on a yoga mat.
Yeah.
Although that I have found also to be very powerful.
Yeah.
Especially for me, before going to bed, like at the end of the day, like when it's all done, like 15 minutes, 20 minutes before going to bed, it's transcendental for me. Like I sleep better, I recover better as an athlete. I have less stress. It's just amazing.
The benefits are endless. Not to get into the details of it, but the benefits, if you even just, quick Google search of the benefits of meditation, it's really an endless, or breath work. It's truly endless. And I know it sounds sort of like almost trite when you read it, but the second you start feeling it and you're realizing, oh, wait, this is real, it's really cool. And what I love about what you said about the flow state, it's so true. That state that you enter when you're in flow and you just feel pure presence, it's just essentially sort of like you remove yourself from the usual way that you're thinking, and you're just like, it's your mind, right? Your thoughts running the show. And what about this? What about that? You're in the future.
Yeah.
You're not in the or in the past, right? You're anywhere but here. And that's the way that most people this day and age live, right? You're just thinking about what you have to, because we have so much to do. We live in such a fast-paced.
It's crazy, man.
Right? It's insane.
It's crazy.
It's really insane. So that's why I'm so, again, passionate about this, because when you learn to train yourself to be able to observe your thoughts instead of being ran by your thoughts, it's extremely empowering. And that's when you enter that flow state.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
Because now the thoughts that are coming through, which are endless, by the way, and that's I do want to throw that out there. Like that, I think that's the biggest fallacy with meditation is people say, I don't know how to stop my thoughts, so I can't meditate. That's not the point of meditation.
Right.
The point of meditation isn't to stop your thoughts from happening. What the science is showing is that that's actually impossible. Just like you can't stop your heart from beating. You can't actually stop your mind from thinking. Right? So it's not about stopping your thoughts.
Right.
It becomes about being able to observe your thoughts and just letting them go. Yeah. Right? So you see the thought, you notice it, you witness it, and then you let it go. And you don't get triggered by it. You don't get caught by it. Usually what happens is you'll have a thought. Let's say, for example, you're meditating. You're sitting there. You're trying to be peaceful. And all of a sudden you have a thought, oh, my goodness, that report I have to do is still. And all of a sudden you're thinking about the report. You're not thinking about the moment. Right? The point of meditation is to be able to look at it and be like, that's okay. Come back to your breath. Whatever your anchor is, because it can be a lot of different things.
Right.
And come back to the breath. Come back to your anchor, whether it's sound, whether it's a mantra, whatever it is in meditation, whether, you come back to that instead. And you just trust that that thing is going to take care of itself somehow, because you can't do it now.
Right.
Right now you're just meditating.
You're not going to sit on the computer and write the report right now.
Exactly. And it's kind of silly when you start thinking about it like that. You start to realize that the way, even during sleep, I don't know if that happens to everybody, right?
Yeah.
You're trying to sleep.
Right.
And all of a sudden, you're not sleeping.
No.
You're planning a project.
Yeah.
Like, what are you doing?
It's the flood of ideas.
It's crazy.
It's nuts.
Yeah.
It's nuts.
So, and it's understandable, right? Like the brain, your mind wants to do its thing. It is trying to help. Yeah. Right? But it's about training your mind to serve you versus it running the show.
Yeah, you being a slave to your own mind.
Exactly. Yeah.
Tell me about how you got into it, like your own personal journey, because there may have, I suppose there was a trigger in your life that brought you to it.
Yeah, absolutely. It could be a really long story, so I'll try to distill it. Essentially, and I think a lot of people, when I say this story, relate to it. I just found myself in a place where I had completely lost my sense of self. I was so caught up in like the external world, work, like life, family, taking care of things at home, so focused externally and trying to succeed there and trying to find fulfillment out there by promotions, by being a good employee, by being a good husband, dad, all this stuff, that I didn't have any sense of inner sort of awareness, really.
Right.
And it came to the point where, I was really living super high stress every day.
Wow.
Every day, just waking up like, with this like pit of anxiety inside of me, which I would say I've never been really an anxious person naturally.
Yeah.
And I didn't know what it was, but eventually like something clicked, something changed. And there was one day where I woke up and I knew there had to be more. And there was like this like inner sort of awareness now and this inner voice that sort of like was very at peace and like knowing that like I had to make some changes, didn't know what they were yet. Wow. And actually our friend Ben comes into the story.
Right.
Because I remember he had mentioned meditation before. And I always viewed meditation as this thing that was for people that lived in the mountains, not in actual society. Right. I didn't view meditation as something that like everyday people, that everyday people did, right?
Right.
And then I remembered, like, I see Ben, super successful guy, right? Like, beautiful family, great friend of mine.
Right.
And I'm like, and he's like, he meditates. I'm like, this is interesting. And so I asked him one day, I'm like, hey, I remember where we went and everything. And I asked him, and he told me a little bit about it. And I started doing it. And, it wasn't until a few months later, to be honest, that I started feeling the benefits of it. Yeah. And I actually just got a little feeling right here because I remember how visceral it was, that feeling of like that inner peace that I was starting to connect to. Wow. Right? Yeah. Not just while I sat in meditation, but while I was driving, which I used to be like a road rage driver. Funny story, actually. That was the one time. So I'm driving. I used to be like anything that happened on the road, like minor cutoff. I would just, instantly yelling, like red face, like, that was my big trigger, I would say. That was like that was irrational. Right. Completely lost myself.
Oh my gosh.
And there was one day I was driving and this guy cuts me off like nasty, like bad. Like
Miami style. Yeah.
Like almost made me get into an accident.
Right.
And I remember I just naturally slowed down, let him pass, and just kept driving. And there was no reaction.
Wow.
Zero. And that was the moment. And like 2 minutes later, I was like,
what
wait
just
a minute.
happened here?
Exactly. I'm like, what just happened? Wow. That's not me. And I realized I was changing. Yeah. And it was like, and I knew, like, there was a part of me that knew it was the meditation. It was that inner awareness that it was changing.
How often were you doing it? Like at the beginning, right? Like, did you like scale it? Like, were you doing like 2 days a week meditation for like 10 minutes, or like how was that journey?
That's such a good question, because I think what prevents most people from establishing a practice of meditation, even if they know that it's something that could work for them, is this idea that it has to be perfect. Yeah. Right? This idea that like it has to be, if I miss a day, I'm not doing it. I failed. Self-judgment comes in, right?
Yeah, it's terrible.
And I always like to say, imperfect action is better than perfect inaction.
100%.
Right? 100%. So just doing it is the win. Yep. So great question, because I definitely started small. I remember when I first sat down to meditate, it was brutal. It wasn't fun at all. I'm like, what is this? Like, this is not fun. I don't want to hear these crazy thoughts going on in my mind. Yeah. Like, I'm insane. Like, what is this? Like, I can't sit still for 1 minute. What's wrong with me?
I have a problem.
Right? Like, what's wrong with me? Like, I'm not okay, right? And then you think that there's something wrong with you, so you'd rather not look at that.
Yes.
But, like, again, I was dedicated. There's a part of me that knew this was big. There's a part of me that just knew that I had to give this a shot. And so I started with, I think it was like 2 minutes. I would set a timer.
Wow.
For 2 minutes. And I would just like sit there and focus on my breath. And it was painful. And then I would get through it. And then whatever. And then I started. And then after a week, maybe 2 weeks. Yeah. I was up to 5 minutes. Wow. After, I'd say a month or two, maybe 10 minutes. Wow. And then it got to the point where I could just, like 30 minutes, no problem. Session. So. And the real game changer was when I went on my first meditation retreat.
Tell me about that.
That was an experience. It was a 10-day silent meditation retreat. It's called Vipassana. Okay. Again, Ben also introduced me to that.
Ben did it too?
Yeah. Ben and Christiana did it, yeah.
Whoa.
Yeah, we'll have to talk about that offline more. But yeah, so 10 days in silence. So no phone, no speaking, no reading.
It's just
reading? Yeah. No taking.
No notes?
No taking. It's just you and meditation for 10 days. So, you go off and you go off and meditate in a specific area for 6 hours a day, 1 hour at a time. And after that was the game. That's when things really changed, man. Yeah.
Yeah, That's like a super intense course on meditation. Right?
It is, and it was after that, because then up until then, I was, some days I would skip, and I wouldn't.
Right.
It was, I was pretty consistent, but not like super consistent. After that, that's when I came back, and I was like, oh no, this is a way of life. This is an everyday thing, and even today, it happens where some days like I just don't have it in me. I just don't feel like it. I'm tired.
Yeah.
But, again, even still, like some days I don't do my 20 minutes. Some days I just have like 5 minutes in me, and that's fine.
That's fine.
Right? Like no self-judgment. Like that's what I got today. You did it, right? Sitting down and meditating is the meditation, whether you do it well or not.
Now, for us that, we have wives and kids and jobs and blah, 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 blah. Tell the listener, right? Because part of the reason I brought Aldo on is because I wanted to give our followers, right? Like some tools that they could really use, especially in the time like coming up to a surgery, for example, or maybe just coming up to like a big life event, right? It may be like they have to give a conference for their job, or they have a high stress situation coming up. It doesn't have to be an operation, but that this is my world. This is plastic surgery and wellness and all that, and and after surgery as well, like how to come to grips with what has happened to them physically, because it's a physical transformation as much as it is a psychological, metamorphosis that they're going through, right? Because these are big changes that are happening, mainly to women that undergo these big operations, right? But, how do you structure, like, does your wife know, hey, like I'm going to be in the room for 5 minutes, 20 minutes, like your daughter, like, your family, like how do you do it? Like what's the mechanism, the process?
It can be, however, it's going to look different for everybody.
Sure.
And that's a beautiful part about meditation. One thing about meditation or breath work, we keep saying meditation, but it's anything, any personal practice of yours, right?
Yeah.
There is no perfect sort of like book that's written that this is how you do it. Okay. It's a very personal practice. Right? So for a lot of people, it's going to look different than others. But ultimately, going back to what I said before, and I will get to your answer.
No, it's fine.
It's like that imperfect action is better than no action. It's like, as long as you do it, that's what matters, right? But yes, I think that's a good point. Starting to identify what is it going to look like for me, right? How long am I going to do it for? Where am I going to do it? Do you have a space? Right? Do you have the time? All that stuff. And one thing I'll add to that is that I think another thing, again, I really like to focus a lot on like the things that keep people from doing something that they know is beneficial to them. And the other thing I hear a lot is I don't have, I don't have the time. Yeah. Or, I just can't seem to get into a rhythm with it. A lot of people that I know start meditating and then they fall out of rhythm with it. And the one thing I'll say there, which sort of answers your question, is looking at your life and seeing where do I already have some sort of routine established, right? Because routine is important. When you talk to people in like the wellness space, and like the routine is critical, right? Yeah. So asking yourself, where do I already have a certain routine that I could attach this thing to, instead of creating something new? Yeah. Right? I also sympathize because we're all so busy. There's so much going on. The thought of adding something else to my schedule, I'm like, get out of here.
Like crazy.
I'm like, no, man. Like, no. I'm not doing that. I have the kids. I have work. I have this. No. But if you look at it this way, what's something you do every day, for example? You brush your teeth every day. Yeah. You shower every day. Yeah. You drink coffee every day. Everybody's different. Yeah. But identifying what is that thing that I do every day, ideally maybe around the same time.
Sure.
And just say, okay, before my morning coffee, for example, I'm going to sit down and take 5 minutes to go into my office and sit down and get my practice in, right? Whether it's breath work or meditation, again, like opening it up to the bigger thing. Yeah. I think that's a cool way to look at it, which makes it more accessible.
Yeah, definitely. Because I think a lot of people have this thing where like you have to be in a quiet room, like on the yoga mat, sitting down, And it's really hard sometimes to get that, but if you can integrate it in, like you said, like even in your own space, in your own office, like 5 minutes, where you can squeeze that in.
Yeah. And letting it be what it's going to be, right? Like that was the other thing. I noticed that as I started my own practice, At first, it was very sort of casual. And, you know, at the time, I didn't have plans to grow it. I didn't have plans to, like, you know, like expand on it.
Right.
But inevitably and eventually, it happened organically. Because it was just like, you start feeling the benefits, and you're like, why wouldn't you?
Right.
Like if you start tapping into and doing something that is changing the way you, and ultimately we're talking about like your like real peace, like your real joy, your real happiness. Like, this is real, right?
Yeah.
It's not just like a concept. Like, you're living this life now that is a lot more peaceful.
Yes.
Why wouldn't you keep expanding on it? So eventually now, you know, where I started like, you know, like on my office chair, now I have a whole little section in my back office that's like, you know, like my mat, my cushion, my altar, like it's a whole thing, you know? So it's literally my sacred space.
Yeah. It keeps growing.
Yeah.
Tell me about the breath work, because, you know, this is something that we're going to do more on this later on together. But like in terms of breath work, I have found that to be one of the most critical parts of helping me with my meditation.
Okay.
Like, I know that there's some music that people can do, or there's certain sounds, and I did quite a bit of yoga over the last maybe 15 years and on all that, but I always found that the breath work is what really got me into a deeper state.
Yeah.
Right? So talk to us about like your ideas on breath work.
I love that you sort of like naturally segued into that, because I think you're right. I think a lot of people this day and age gravitate more towards breath work than meditation. Meditation's tricky because meditation, you're not doing anything. It's still, so to put somebody who is 21st century human being in the technology world that we live in, as stimulated as we are, to go from that to like, okay, just be still, that's tricky.
Challenge, yeah.
That's tricky. I get it. So honestly, like I actually understand 100% where most people are coming from to say meditation's not for me.
Right.
Breath work, what it's giving you is actually giving you an active something to do.
Something to do.
So people are like, oh, I'm used to doing something.
Right.
So it's a better entry point, I think, this day and age. So like when we say breath work, there's two ways you can look at breath work. There's the more observing style of breath work, which is, you know, so you're just watching your breath and you're just tuning into your breath, like what's it doing, how's it feeling, and just that alone will change the way that you're doing it, right? Or there's what's called pranayama, which is the intentional manipulation of the breath.
Yes.
So you're choosing to breathe in a different way, like holding your breath, like breathing in for 4 seconds, holding, breathing out, holding, right? And there's a million different variations of that you could do.
Yes.
But you're intentionally manipulating your breath. So those are two different ones.
Yeah.
And just to backtrack a little bit on like breath work overall and the importance of it. So this is very scientific now. Like the thing is, a lot of people think this is all very like esoteric and very like,
I know.
However, right, like the science behind breath work is tried and true and has been around for a lot longer than when we started talking about breath work, right? Like what's something that's given to women during childbirth?
Yeah.
Breath work.
Techniques
like,
of breathing.
Techniques of breathing.
To get through the pain.
You're about to go into the most painful experience of your life, and doctors for years have been saying breathe in a certain way because it works.
Yeah.
And the reason it works is the breath is directly tied to your nervous system.
Exactly.
So your nervous system controls everything in your body. Everything, the way you feel, your pain levels, your sweat, like everything in your body is controlled through the autonomic nervous system.
Yes.
And there's two parts to it. There's the parasympathetic nervous system, which is the calm down, we're safe, right? Rest and digest, everything is okay.
Yes.
Right? It's like the brakes of the breathing mechanism. And then there's the sympathetic, which is triggers the fight or flight. It's trying to get you into, you know, look out there, you know, look for danger, you know, and this is all like, you know, hardwired into our bodies. We all have this. This is not it works for you. No.
Everyone has it.
We all have it, right? Yeah. So when you breathe in, that's actually triggering the sympathetic.
Okay.
So what happens when you get like really hyperly stressed, you're trying to like breathe in really fast, right? And the parasympathetic, the calm down, is tied to the out breath. So that's why when you breathe out calmly,
the long
exhale,
yes,
you're triggering that. So your body starts to receive signals that we're okay, we're okay, right?
Right.
So again, going back to so when you start to being mindful of the way that you're breathing and asking yourself, what do I need here? What am I not doing? Maybe you're hyper stressed and you're not even breathing.
You're choking.
You're choking yourself. So your oxygen levels are going crazy. Your carbon dioxide's going up.
Really?
Your body's freaking out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you learn to be mindful of your breath and even under stressful conditions, let me breathe into my belly.
Slow it down.
Let me slow it down. Your body starts to receive that message. And the thing is, it's not a one-way street. I think a lot of people think something's happening or you feel a certain way and your breathing changes. And that's it. And there's only a one-way street. You're a victim to your circumstances. The truth is, it's a two-way street. So when you start to breathe differently and you change the way you're breathing, wait, I'm stressed. Cool. Objectively, there's something going on.
Definitely.
Somebody's trying to fight me.
Right.
Somebody's trying to do something to me. My boss is being a whatever.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Things like that. And but then, and you acknowledge that exists. You don't pretend that that's not a thing.
Right.
Stress happens. Life is life, right? But you're like, cool. Let me manage the one thing I can control, which is my inner world.
And my breath. Yeah.
And then you start to, in the face of that,
right.
Breathe properly, you start to see a difference in everything.
100%. The clarity increases, the awareness improves.
Yeah.
You get better.
This is the point of cold plunging, for example.
That's the next topic.
Yeah, I know we talked about this a lot, so I knew we were gonna get there. But I love cold plunging. I have one at home. I think it's a really great tool.
Yeah.
You're allowing yourself to enter an objectively high stress situation. Your body thinks it's dying. Oh yeah, like that 35, 38 degree. Yeah. Your body is sending signals to you saying no, we're in danger here. Yeah. Right?
Totally.
And so your body starts to try to do its thing and get you to react. Right? Instead of respond to the situation. But when you sit there and you go I'm going to respond by breathing properly, you start to literally feel your body calm down,
chill out,
and allow itself to be. And you can literally feel yourself getting warmer in there.
Yes.
If you do it
right.
If you do it right,
you can get warm.
100%. And that's really empowering to see that even in that environment.
Yes.
You can do that.
It's huge.
And it's cool. And I think that's what it ultimately comes down to for me, meditation, breathwork, all of it is teaching yourself and training yourself to be responsive to life versus reactive.
No, that's absolute. There's an experience that I had personally, scuba diving. When I first started scuba diving, and I wasn't doing any meditation, any breath work, you have a tank that's attached to you, right? And if you get into this very intense breathing, because you're so overly stimulated, you're 40 feet underwater, you don't know what's behind you, you're trying to deal with all of these gadgets, and you're first learning to deal with that. I would chew through a whole tank of of my scuba tank, and my dive sessions would last 20 minutes, and I had to get out. I had to leave because I just sucked up so much air.
Yeah.
But over time, as I worked on my breath and more into meditative state, I could last twice as long, and my breath would slow down to the point where I wasn't worried that I was gonna run out of air in the tank.
Yeah.
And so, that's a real world application in a difficult, very stimulating, where your body's reacting in the same way as a cold plunge. I'm not meant to be 60 feet underwater.
100%.
This is not natural,
yeah.
Right? But if you can dig deeper
yeah.
and get yourself under control
yeah.
and be in the present, right? Like, forget about what's going to happen to you like 10 minutes from now, right? Or what you saw 5 minutes ago. It's more like, okay, I'm here now. Let's get the breath under control. Let's get the heart rate under control. Let's get the mind under control, and then you can really enjoy the moment, right? You can enjoy the time that you're underwater, or that you're cycling, or that you're doing whatever you enjoy doing.
For sure. That's such a great practical sort of application
yeah.
of what we're talking about, you know, and to see that direct feedback
yes.
of, whoa, I just changed the way that this whole experience is by changing the way I'm breathing.
Totally.
You know what I mean? And you see that, and like, I can't overstate, like, you know, how impactful this thing can be. Like
yeah.
the learning to be able to manage, or something that you have with you at all times, by the way. That's
right.
the other thing about breathwork that I love. You know, like people ask me like, because here's the other thing, right? A lot of people talk about, you know, the things that work for them. And there's a lot of things that are out there that can work for you to feel better.
Sure.
A lot of things. There's a ton of things out there.
Yeah.
There, you know, working out is great. Going for a walk is amazing.
Sure.
Listening to music is incredible.
Mm-hmm.
Anything that gets you out of your thoughts again. But the breath is always with you.
Right.
Nobody can take it away from you. It's always available. It's free.
Yeah.
You can do it anywhere, right? That's the other thing. You're not, you know, like I love movement. We started talking about rope flow a little bit earlier.
Yes.
I love like getting into the body to get out of your thoughts. Amazing tool. But if I'm about to go into an interview, you know, a very important interview, I'm not going to sit there and stand up and start doing these movements, right? Like I won't get the job. So what's something you can do that you can do anywhere? You can sit there calmly anywhere and focus on the way you're breathing. Yeah. Right?
Yeah.
And again, there's a bunch of different ways like of approaching breath work, but there's very simple ones as well.
Right.
You know, so like you started asking me about like what people can do, like specific like tools.
Right.
And like things like, you know, box breathing, you know, which is just simply like breathing in for 4 seconds, holding it for 4 seconds, breathing out for 4 seconds, and holding. So you're literally making a box. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, hold for 4. That alone, science shows like if you can consciously do that for, I think that what I read was like 60 seconds, maybe even just 30. Yeah. Your body's chemical composition literally will change.
Whoa.
Yeah. It's that instantaneous.
Wow.
Yeah. And then like who can't do that?
Who can't do that? Yeah.
So and the thing about I keep finding out breathwork is like the important part of this stuff is to actually do it.
Yeah.
Right? Sure. That's the other part of this. I think we all, and I think especially people that start to do it a lot, inevitably get to a point where they think that because they know about this, it's enough.
Right.
It's like, oh, I meditate every day or this and that, but they're not, oh, breathwork, I know that works. But then they actually forget to do it when they need it. So when you're about to, you know, go into something stressful, like taking that 1 minute to like breathe intentionally, makes a huge difference, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
What have you found with your clients that you know that have come to you, you know, seeking like more, you know, like coaching, right? Like how do I, you know, go through this process? Like what have you found to be some of the things that have been most impactful from some of your clients?
It's been actually finding the moments where they actually did it and they saw that instant feedback and like a high. Because what happens is like a lot of people have reached out to me organically in like really difficult situations because they know that like I'm really into this. I'm super dedicated to these practices, and they know like, oh, like, you know, they're going through something really, really big, and they reach out and they're like, whoa, like I'm going through something here, like I need a little, and then like in that moment of like I am desperate, right? Like life comes at you fast and hard, and it's not easy. In those moments, you know, like they do something like simply like breathing a certain way and they feel that difference, that's a game changer, right? Yeah. And that's great. That's awesome. Yeah. But what I always tell them is, all right, cool. You felt it. You know how big that is. Like, and that it's great to use these tools during times of desperate measures. Sure. Awesome. But it's also even better to be proactive about this stuff. And why not get ahead of it before you need it, right? Right. Like there's a quote that says like, make time for your wellness or you'll be forced to make time for your illness.
Oof. That's a great quote.
Right?
I like that one.
Yeah. Right. So like, so like it's cool to use these tools like when you need it, but like, why not get ahead of it? Right. Right. Why not put yourself in a place through practice, whatever it looks like for you again. I think
a lot of personal.
It's personal. Yeah. It's like whatever it looks like for you. If it's a minute a day, at least you know like it's something, right? Like, and it doesn't whatever it, right? But like that's powerful. Absolutely. And so like those moments of that where like you start to see that difference, and like again using that big moment to then like you know like encourage them to actually explore their own practice, right? And then they come back later and they're like, wow, like I've been doing X, Y, and Z, and my life is different now.
That's huge.
Aldo,
if somebody wanted to contact you, like if somebody was interested and be like they saw the podcast and they're like, I want to talk more to Aldo Jaquez. Yeah. How do they do that?
They can email me at aldojaquez@gmail.com.
And Jaquez is Jaquez.
Jaquez.
U
Yeah,
easy.
so ALDO @gmail.com.
Perfect.
Or on Instagram at Aldo Jax. So Aldo Jax.
Aldo Jax.
Yeah. Direct message me there. I do this as a passion project.
I get it.
Yeah.
But I wanted them to know how to at least follow you.
Yeah, no, for sure. And there's also, I'm actually joining a local group called Modern Ohm and doing one-on-one coaching through them. And they offer a lot of incredible services for meditation, breathwork, all types of experiences designed and catered around like personal wellness.
Yeah.
So that's a great tool and a great resource. And I'll be doing a one-on-one coaching through them.
And is that an app that people download?
There's an app. There's on Instagram, Modern Ohm.
Ohm is OHM?
Modern Ohm. So Modern OM.
OM.
Yeah.
Okay.
Modern Ohm.
Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. I thought
you.
It was a super, super great episode for our podcast, for our viewers. Again, we just want to reiterate, if you're going to be going to see me as a plastic surgeon and you're getting ready to go through the process, whether or not you have surgery with me is not, what it's about. It's really about preparing you to undergo this very transformative process. So listening to the podcast, think about breath work, think about meditation, think about how you can integrate that well before your surgery and after to continue to do that. And I can tell you that the patients that have really invested in this process have had a really, truly amazing experience with plastic surgery in general. And so we encourage you to think about it. So thank you for listening to our podcast, and thank you, Aldo, for being here.
Thank you, Alex. Yeah, appreciate you, man.
Thank you.